Greetings and salutations, everyone. I do hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to today's bonus upload. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. With that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's bonus, shall we?
Today's first encounter. This experience happened last year at Knoll Lake in Arizona. Me and a buddy went camping in this area, and we expected to stay just about 3 days. First day/night was uneventful and peaceful. On the second day, around mid-afternoon, we got a whiff of something foul, kind of like garbage on a hot day. It came and went suddenly. We joked at each other, accusing one of us for passing gas. About an hour later, I was at the shoreline of the lake just fishing, and I got a whiff of that foul smell again. So I looked around very annoyed, but I didn't detect anything. My buddy was about 75 yards away at camp as you follow the shoreline, so I grabbed my gear and headed back. In the evening, we were cooking, and we heard what sounded like someone chopping wood about 200 yards up the hill behind us. We just stood up and stared in the general direction. It lasted about 10 minutes with intervals in between. I don't remember what we said to each other, but we sat back down. I only had a machete and a boning knife, no guns. We were talking and drinking when suddenly we heard this deep, throaty bellow. This sound was so loud that it echoed through the hills above us. We about crapped our pants. I know for a fact we don't have any wildlife that can make that kind of noise in Arizona. Today's second encounter. I've got a very creepy experience that happened. A family member of mine owns about 200 acres of land in eastern Tennessee. Ever since I was a kid, my dad, uncles, and cousins had always gone out there to camp, hang out, and target shoot. Well, we normally cheated a bit and camped out in my dad's truck bed instead of the tent because the truck has a topper. Well, when I was about 13, I wanted to try out my dad's new tent. So we set it up and we tried it out that night. We had a fun day and everyone heads to bed. In our tents was my dad, myself, and my cousin. We all eventually fall asleep, but about halfway through the night I wake up because I hear something outside of the tent. As I'm lying in the tent, I start hearing coyotes yipping and barking. We had left the fire burning, so by the light of it I was able to see something's shadow walking by the fire. It resembled a coyote, but much larger. By now I'm wide awake and freaked out. I closed my eyes, trying to ignore them. But then I start to feel something touching my side. I open my eyes and I see this coyote or whatever it is shadow right beside me. The thing starts poking me in the side. I snap my eyes shut. Today's second encounter. I've got a very creepy experience. A family member of mine owns about 200 acres of land in eastern Tennessee. Ever since I was a kid, my dad, uncles, and cousins had always gone out there to camp, hang out, and target shoot. Well, we normally cheated a bit and camped out in my dad's truck bed instead of a tent because my dad's truck had a topper. Well, when I was about 13, I wanted to try out my dad's new tent, so he set it up and we tried it out that night. We had a great day. Everyone heads to bed. In our tent was myself, my dad, and my cousin. We all eventually fall asleep. About, halfway through the night, I wake up because I hear something outside of the tent. As I'm lying there, I start to hear something like a coyote yelping and barking. We had left the fire burning, so by the light of it, I was able to see a coyote, but too large to be a coyote's shadow, walking by the fire. By now, I'm wide awake and freaked out. I close my eyes and try to ignore them, but then I start to feel something touching my side. I open my eyes and see whatever this thing was shadow right beside me. The thing starts poking me in my side with its nose and what appeared to be its hand. I snapped my eyes shut. It kept poking me, but then it just left. I didn't hear anything else for the rest of the night, and I did not go back to sleep. The next morning I asked my dad and my cousin if they had seen what I had. They said they had heard them in the distance, but they never got close. It still freaks me out to this day, and now I always sleep with a weapon a little closer. Anyway, on the same land, my dad gets the great idea to go for a little night hike to a cave where my cousins were at. We start walking down this trail, and then it hits us. It's dark. It's really frickin' dark and really quiet. Never in my life had I seen my dad scared, but when my body got rigid, I saw his do it as well. When I saw him put his hand on his gun, I got really scared. After a second, he just says, "Run." We both tear off down the path and bolt back to the truck and the fire. The next day, we found something terrifying. No joke, we found 10, and yes, we counted 10 dead dogs, all piled in a big pile right near the trail me and my dad we had walked down. Don't know why they were there, and I didn't stick around. We left later that day, and I haven't been to that part of the land since. Today's third encounter. When I was a teenager, my friends and I would sneak off into the woods and just goof off and whatnot. This was in Holland, and the woods were actually part of a Dutch army base. There was a place we would go and watch them train with their tanks, and sometimes American tanks. There was even an old World War II bunker that was completely abandoned and we would use to get out of the rain and hang out in. One evening we decided to head out to this little spot that was in the middle of acreage of short 8-foot pine trees. We're teenagers and we're going to smoke the funny cigarettes. This particular spot was a very small clearing with 2 average-sized trees and a bush. We formed a little circle of 6 teens, a nice mixture of boys and girls. Pretty neat stuff if you can remember what it was like at 16. You know, hormones and stupid in equal measure. Without being crude, my attention was on the girls. We were there for about 20 minutes or so. We were feeling good, laughing and joking. We started out when the sun was setting, and by this time it was full at night. No one had a flashlight, and because of where we were, no one thought to build a fire. Funny how you don't remember some things, and how some things just seem to stick out forever. I still remember my buddy sitting across from me saying, "That bush looks like a dude." We all looked, and of course we just laughed. I thought he was trying to scare the girls, and we all were in altered states. All of a sudden the bush stands up. We run. Stupid slasher flicks. I personally ran so fast and blindly that I had welts from the pine trees for 2 days all over my arms and face. Some places I looked like I had been hit with a switch, and in others I looked like I had measles. Evidently the Dutch army was doing some kind of training. We must have given some Dutch soldier a great laugh. Or so we hope. Anyway, I don't know if it was a Dutch soldier or if it was some sort of, I have no idea, Sasquatch. But yeah, that's what it's like being a stupid teenager. Today's fourth part of the upload. Hey, basically, I'm awake late at night because I'm watching over my dog and she's about to go into labor. I was in my kitchen making a cup of tea while I waited and moved into the living room to wait for the water to boil. My living room's on the ground floor, but one section is elevated due to the house being built on uneven ground. Towards one end of the living room, we have a door with a glass window built into it, which leads out onto a veranda. As I looked through this glass door, I saw two gigantic red eyes staring back at me. At first, I thought it was a reflection from something inside of my house, despite the fact that we don't have any red lights from any type of electronics. I moved back and forth to try to see if the eyes were reflecting in the glass, and as I moved closer to the wall on the side the eyes were spotted, I could see that the eyes went behind the wall as I moved. In my opinion, this confirmed that the eyes came from a source outside of the house. As you can imagine, I got pretty scared and went back into the room where my dog is. My phone was in this room, so I didn't take a photo of what I saw. Besides, photo evidence was not on my mind, either, as I didn't think this would have been put online. I'm trying to think of a reason for why there would be two glowing red circles outside of my home. I can't really think of anything, as I live out in the country and this wall was facing the woods and not any type of neighboring buildings, not to mention, judging from the scale, the eyes looked like they were pretty close to my door, like they had come from a source that was on the railing of my veranda. I went back out to check on the eyes a few minutes later, and they were gone. Has anyone experienced something similar? I feel really threatened at the moment. The only thing I can think of is night vision goggles, which, after further research, don't have red reflective lenses like in action films, and they were probably far too large as well. I couldn't see anything other than the red eyes outside, seeing that it was pitch black. Also, I did after hear a loud knocking sound in my living room, and I officially moved to my bedroom for good that night. Edit. It was the next day. I just walked out onto the veranda where I saw the eyes. The fencing we had put to protect the dogs from slipping off the edge, where there is an opening in the railing, has been ripped off in the area the eyes were seen, which makes me believe it must have been something with arms. The fencing was connected with strips and curved nails, and the nails had to have been ripped out of the wood. I don't know anything other than a human that has that ability to rip nails out like that, but I don't know humans that have red eyes. Today's fifth part of the upload. My brother and I have always loved nature and wildlife. My brother's in the military and I work outdoors. We've probably spent more time in nature than anyone. We know animals and their distinctive sounds. We know their behaviors. Wolves have always fascinated us because they've always behaved strangely in our presence. Our first strange experience with wolves occurred 10 years ago. We used to go on this 4-kilometer squared island near the house, kayaking a kilometer to get there. We were walking in the night, and suddenly we found ourselves surrounded by 7 wolves. We used bear spray against them and went to take refuge in a tree. The wolves stayed all night at the foot of the tree, or at least near it. My brother returned there alone afterward. One night he was walking, and an animal or something yelled at him. He didn't see the animal, but the sound terrified him. A scream of a man with a deep voice mixed with a baby's cry. He fired 6 rounds where the sound was coming from. This creature yelled louder and ran away. The sound of its footsteps indicated that it was running on 2 legs. It was big enough to break everything in its path. We went back and saw many signs of what we thought was Bigfoot, Dogman, something we don't know. This story stayed there because we didn't want to believe it. My brother later moved more than 400 kilometers from this place, close to one of Canada's largest protected forests. When we go into this forest, between 5 and 6 hours after we enter, we end up getting surrounded by aggressive wolves when we don't leave early enough. We must shoot in their direction to scare them away. We've been surrounded by them a minimum of 10 times. Until recently, we thought it was a particularly aggressive pack. Furthermore, to leave this wood, we must walk a few kilometers. Then we take the truck, in which we must make 3 to 4 kilometers on an old dirt road. We were returning quietly during the night, when on my right I saw a white light orb about 30 feet from us in the forest, floating about 10 feet high. There is no house or road more than 5 kilometers away. We believed it was a hunter or hiker in distress with a flashlight. My brother took his rifle and his headlamp and went to see into the woods. He saw nothing and returned about 10 minutes later, and when he came back, I was scared. First, he arrived from behind the truck. Until he arrived within 1 meter of the truck, what I saw in the rearview mirror was a grizzly bear. We have no grizzly bears in this area. In addition, I asked him why he turned off his headlamp for 5 minutes. He tells me that he never turned it off, and he always had the truck in his sights, with the headlights on. There was no drop where he was. Finally, when I could see his lamp, I saw something pass 10 meters ahead of the truck. We were definitely scared. Finally, he was camping out with his girlfriend more than 100 kilometers from that place. During the night, they were awoken again by a pack of wolves that had surrounded them. His girlfriend had already reported 1 year ago having seen the same light orb nearby, and she had mentioned that she had seen a gray creature without ears crossing the road on 2 legs. In short, she didn't think about it until she heard our story. The wolves, the lights, the bipedal creature, a strange impression that we are not welcome a few hours before anything happens. Even if we don't really believe in that, we are thinking of, I don't know, some sort of creature. What do you guys think? Also, after the white light event, we returned the next day and the forest was completely dead. No animals, no sounds, nothing at all. We've never seen a forest that calm. I apologize for my English. I am French Canadian. Tonight's final encounter. Hello everyone, my name is Mike and I'm from Sheboygan, Michigan. This is an encounter that I'd like to share with you. On November 24th, 2010, me and 2 of my friends went out at night around 12 in the morning. We were not hunting, but we had weapons. We were looking for a spot to set our blinds for muzzleloading season when we crossed from a field with a ton of deer blinds. We came into another field with none whatsoever. We continued through this field and came across some kind of game trail. We decided to venture down this trail into the woods. We got maybe 300 yards back in it and started hearing heavy breathing and snapping sounds in the thick brush to our right. We thought maybe it was coyotes, but we got to a corner and were stopped in our tracks. In front of us, maybe 60 yards away, was something blacker than the wood standing on 2 feet. It stood between 6'8" and 7'4". We slowly turned away and backtracked. Before we got to the field, the same thing was in front of us again. We turned around for a second and then turned back and it was gone. When we got into the field, we noticed there were 4 or more of these creatures, one on each corner of the field, just standing there. We saw one move halfway behind a tree. At this point, we were freaked out. We made our way through the field and got to the edge, and there was one standing directly in the middle of the trail entering the woods. We hauled ass back home, and the whole way we felt like we were being watched and stalked. We've been out every night since then. We have learned not to use lights because they come closer than 60 yards. The closest it's been to me was maybe 25 yards, and was moving closer. At that point I shot at it. There were a total of 5 that we saw the first night, and after I shot at one, we went our last night, and there were only 4, and they seemed to be more aggressive. It seems they've tried herding us into a corner. You can believe this or not, but I'm from Michigan National Guard, and I put what I saw on my warrior's ethos and Army values. In the fall, my son and I were driving on US 41/M28 towards 3 Lakes in Michigan Upper Peninsula, where I live. This beast ran across the highway near Tioga. We are familiar with all the animals living here. Moose regularly cross in front of drivers, so we watched the sides of the roads very carefully. We were very puzzled and thought it may have been some sort of mutant wolf, and could not figure out what we witnessed. It ran fairly fast, about 50 feet in front of the truck. It was so strange because the front of it was much higher up than the back, larger than a wolf. Very strange to see. The side view shape of this creature was almost like an ape shape, with the front legs longer than the back legs, which made it run funny. It ran like a bear runs, with the exception of the back legs being shorter, if you can picture that. The front, from the angle I saw, looked like it must have had a wide chest. The head appeared wolf-like, but it definitely was not a wolf. The color was brown and black mixed. The hair seemed medium long like a wolf. And I remember thinking, it may have had mange. Must have had patches of hair. I was telling my son, who's 13, that I had been checking stuff out on the internet. He gave the same description, how very strange and out of place it was. He said that this spring he saw the same type of thing on a logging road near our house. I do remember him telling me that at first, and it was the same thing. He was riding his dirt bike. We live in a very extremely remote area, and it ran across the trail. I know where he's talking about because I pick berries there, and we do get weird feelings like something's watching us. A neighbor told me that the area is Bigfoot Central, which I didn't know or believe. But after doing some more research, there are lots of reports of strange creatures in this area that go back many, many years. Who knows what it is, but as long as it's not hurting anything, I hope it's left alone. I'm very familiar with the wildlife. I do hunt, and I know tracks. I have not seen any strange tracks, but now I will really keep my eyes open.
And there you have it, folks. I do hope you enjoyed today's bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. Thank you for supporting this channel. It is your support, after all, that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real, they are out there, and dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.